Hello and welcome as we see Dan Marquez and Matthew Wrightson racing during qualifying. As we go right on with Dan, the Portuguese currently is residing in the UK, I believe, as he goes up the Eau Rouge and Radion complex down the Kemmel Straight on his first flying hot lap here, getting a bit of a tow from Matthew. Coming up to very few breaking points here, as Adam do not know what Matthew's doing, and if he starts crying about it, I'm not going to listen to it. Anyway, coming up here now to Les Combs, the tricky downhill right-hander. Dan in the Toyota GT1 99. That is a newly released car in Gran Turismo 7. Up to the famous no-name corner on our drag race down to Pujon. As we're seeing a lot of drivers very close to each other in qualifying, which can lead to disastrous results. If you play it correctly, especially in Sector 1 in this track, it can be okay because you can just get a lovely slipstream. However, if you're playing stupid games, you win stupid prizes. So, this is it, of course. Anyway, so 15 drivers, full grid today for Tier 1. I am very happy to be doing commentary for you this season. Season 3 of the Gran Turismo 7 League in ERO. And let's hope we have a full house every week. As James Wiggins goes fastest at the moment with a 207.679. Will anyone supersede him? Will two-time defending champion Macaulay Beard have something to say to that? No, but Mr. Paul Hutchison, the business duck, all correcting to the business. We will not say the rest. Automatically goes faster. Kalle Pukkanen sitting his car into P3 with Remco Sweets into P4. Mr. Rob Cripps, the man with the plan, in P5. Drop it in P6. Apo Topo in P7. Mr. Bean. 90s Raver, I have no idea who you are. I think you're Jason Boner. Jason. Anyway, Apo with a nice Visa Cash App Red Bull racing car in P8 with the NSX Concept GT. It seems to be a very popular car in the GR2 category. He's currently in P8. Further down the field, we'll see Kieran Purnell, I think that is. I think that's Kieran. Within the Nismo GTR in P10 as it stands, with not long left to go in qualifying, only a few minutes. I can't even see the timer for qualifying for some reason. Anyway, Yeast has gone P1 at the moment by just less than a tenth of a second in the GT1. Good showing from him, from our two-time defending champion in Tier 1 of our Gran Turismo 7 leagues. If you're just after tuning in, welcome. We are currently in qualifying here, where we're in Spa on the full circuit for 18 laps in Group 2 cars. We're expecting some great action here as Wiggy goes even faster now, putting himself 3/10 ahead of Yeast. Rob also going a bit faster too. He's up to P4, puts Kalle down to P5. Only a few minutes left in qualifying. Drivers are going to have maybe one more attempt at a lap after this. Matthew sticking his nose in there in P6 at the moment with a 207.942. Yeast up on his time. Can he improve another 2/10? Now Kalle with a 206.8. Times are rapidly dropping now as everyone's burned a bit of fuel off and they're really beginning to push. Let's see what happens next though. With a few minutes to go in qualifying. Where can Yeast put this car as he comes up to the infamous bus stop chicane here? Bit of a moment on the exit there. With Kieran, or sorry, that's Kian. And Yeast does go in Deco fastest by over 3/10. sending a message to the field. And I think that's going to be his qualifying done. What can Mr. James Wiggins do? Oh, how do I change? I can't change the brake miles. Okay. As we will just right on board with him here. Lots of different camera angles here. Beautiful ERO banner there, and the Welsh flag from James. Riding high in his NSX. As he's heading into the final sector now. Long straight here, you need to get a decent exit, otherwise you're going to be really compromised. As he's gone purple in sector 2, over 3/10 up in his time. If he was to keep pace here, keep par here, he would go P1. Is he going to get that now as he comes down the long straight here? This is a no-glyph zone, coming up to the bus stop chicane, picking your braking points, somewhere between the 150 and 100 meter braking mark boards. Bit of curb here to widen the entry. Takes a lot of curb there, has a bit of a moment. I don't know if that's desync or lag. What's this going to be? This is going to be in the 206s. Is it fast? It's not, and that really cost him at the end there at the bus stop. Calais now in his Mercedes CLK flying along. What can he do? He's got a bit of traffic in front of him. As Goofy goes with a 207.4. Calais in the bus stop. Hopefully the dirty air doesn't affect him too much. Business Duck now goes P3. And Calais is going to be P4 still. No improvement for him. Dan Marquez setting a 207.8. Great stuff from you, Dan. Further down the field, are we seeing anyone else coming close to the line? We should be, actually. You actually see James Wiggins again now as he's heading into sector 2. Beautiful shot here around Les Combs. Just shows how big of a gradient change there is on Spa. Highest gradient track changes in the F1 calendar. I'm pretty sure in the WEC calendar as well. So some big elevation changes here, and that leads to difficulties in the car. The car will understeer a lot as a result of that, as I found out in Tier 2 this evening. Well, congratulations to, I think it was Philip Rainford who won in Tier 2. Congratulations to you, sir. Great start to the season for you, with defending champion João Santos only getting P5 and his title contender from last season, Adam Bradshaw, getting P6. This will be the driver's final lap now, so whatever times they do set, this is it. James is currently up in his time, again setting a purple sector 2. But is it going to be good enough for P1? This is the question. Needs a better bus stop chicane than he had the last time. That is for certain. As we're seeing some gorgeous shots here. The camera angles in this game are beautiful. It must be said. And we come into the bus stop now. He takes a lot of curb again. And there, that seems to be a lot cleaner though. But what's this going to be? Is this going to be the 205s? It's not. It's going to be the 206s. And it's going to be, he's going to actually not improve. So, can Business Duck now spoil the yeast party? Or is it going to be business as usual here? As Matthew needs to get out of the way now ASAP, and that's there's a bit of a wobble there mid chicane, and I don't think Business Duck is going to improve as a result of that. He's not, and it's looking like Yeast is going to be in P1. Calais, what can you do? No improvement. Rob out, Woody out, Dan Marquez next to the line. Where can we go? Dan doesn't improve. Remco doesn't improve. 90s Raver does improve, but stays P13. And I think that is going to be qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. As we see our fine stewards observing what's going on out on the track. Cian Hodgson goes faster at 207.6. Well done to you. Late entry this evening into the race. And if I'm not mistaken, that is qualifying done and dusted. So, just to round out the qualifying so far, Yeast on pole, he'll get a point for that, then followed by James Wiggins, Paul Hutchinson, Calais Pukin, Matthew Wrightson in P5. Where did that come from? Rob Cripps P6, Goofy Woody or Soren Jansson, I think his name is. Apologies if I pronounced it incorrectly. P7, Cian Hodgson, and P8, Dan Marquez. Remco Sweets, Drop It, Apo Topo, Jason Booner, Neil Pudridge, I think, and Keith Holt rounding out the rest of the grid. You've got 1 minute, boys, to change your setups. And I'll be right back. And we are going to be back racing. Remember, there is a false start this evening, and I need to get the replay settings up. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. Let's make sure everyone gets away cleanly and through turn 1 alive. And we are away racing in Spa for round 1 of season 3 in ERO. And it looks like it's going to be a drag race down to the line. Yeast gets a good start, manages to keep P1. James Wiggins staying right with him. Business Duck there also in the mix. Woody, it seems to be in a bit of a shambles here. Is meat inside the sandwich he appears to be. Yeast gets away clean. Matthew and Woody on a race down to Eau Rouge. Rob Cripps dropping places down to P6 already. And there's been a collision. Rob has unfortunately spun all the way out for him. He's going to drop the whole way to the back of the pack. A poor start. The top 3 remain unchanged. Matthew up 1 position. Woody up 1 position. Keane and Woody going side by side. Bit of contact there as Keane goes miles off the track. No. You can't keep that place, mate. Good, well played, Keane. Very fair, but you're kind of causing a bit of collateral as a result. You've been spun out. Poor Apo Topo mowing the grass as well. So what happens when you got big lobbies, lads? There's going to be collisions. Dan Marquez also following K Doggy Dog further up the field. Yeast nearly 2 seconds ahead of James Wiggins already. Seems to be very comfortably in the lead after just 1 lap. And let's just check some of the deltas here to see how far the rest are away. It's interesting to see how he drives compared to how I drive. It's good to watch drivers. It's because like otherwise I'd never learn. I'm just so bad at this game. I'm good at talking nonsense but bad at driving racing games. James following behind. He's actually he's closing in ever so slightly, so he might have the faster car in sector 2. And Yeast's car might be faster in the straight line. Business Duck just over a second away. No DRS, obviously, in Gran Turismo in GR2. In the Super Formula, there is a boost button. And behind Business Duck, Goofy Woody is there. But however, himself and Matthew are battling to the bus stop. Woody has the inside line, so he'll take this for now. But Matthew is not giving this up. And we do see a lot of drivers very close to one another. We're just changing the camera angle here. Right on board with Matthew in his meme Skoda car. His Porsche, but it looks, no, it's Nismo, sorry. As Dropper with a bit of a lunge there. Oof. Forcing Matthew a bit wide, but it's okay. Apo Topo arriving in the scene in his Visa Cash App Red Bull Racing NSX. And behind them, Remco Sweets waiting to pick up the pieces from any drivers that get spun out here. Matthew has a bit of a wobble there, up Eau Rouge. And through Radion, down the Kemmel Straight. These 4 drivers go very close to each other. We can see Woody and Drop It side by side. Apo and Matthew here getting very close, almost coming to blows on the Kemmel Straight. Who's going to pick the latest breaking point? Woody and Apo are going to have the inside line in their respective battles. Matthew, though, with a Matthew not giving this up. He's actually racing quite well so far. Saying that, Apo and himself tangling here. Drop It seems to have gotten past Woody cleanly enough. And we all have to be very careful here going through Les Combs, lad. Very careful. Just to avoid any calamities. Now Remco's really closed into the back of this little pack of 4 here. It's going to be great racing from these 5 to keep it on the track and incident free for the next 16 laps. Relatively good there. That's okay as they're going through Puhan now. And it seems that Woody's just lost a bit of traction there. And if you go end up on the green part of the curbs here, you just lose the car. The car just bottoms out. And as a result of that, Drop It is gone. He's dropped them. Apo, I think, was punted off there by Matthew ever so slightly. Matthew maybe with a bit of a push to pass there. It's hard to tell. Remco up to P6. Apo down to P8. Let's go Barfowler back up the field as Business Duck is now over a second and a half away from James Wiggin. And he's 5 seconds away from our leader, Yeast, 3.5 seconds clear. Really pushing on here. Really pushing on. Dropping the field. And Drop It. Speak of the devil. Less than a second separates himself and Matthew as they're coming through the bus stop chicane, and they're going to be starting their 3rd lap of 18. Tonight's Tier 1 race of Season 3 in ERO. Remco and Woody also following suit. Dan as well on the scene. Apo as well. He's the back of this pack now with 90s Raver leading his own little pack of himself, Calais, Rob, Pud, Keith Holt, who's just started the season, and Cian Hodgson. Fastest lap also belonging to Yeast as well. So Yeast might actually might do a Grand Slam here tonight at this rate. It'll be interesting to see the tyres everyone started off, and we can't see that just yet. It's not like an F1 where you can tell by the colour of the rims. We'd only know that once they begin to start pitting. Again, this beautiful shot here. I wish the F1 game had these kind of camera angles. That's an amazing shot there. And we see James entering the no-name corner. 5 seconds is the gap between himself and Yeast. Business Duck, as well as a bit decent in the lobby, trying to stick with James best he can. 1.4 seconds, so just over 1.5 seconds. Drop It. Still hasn't dropped Remco, but Remco's actually gotten past Matthew. We missed that. We were following the action further up the field. Matthew's staying with him, very close to the back of him here. And we see Woody. I think that's Apo with a penalty. No, it's Dan Marquez. He's got a half a second penalty for track limits. And Apo's going to prey on this here. As Apo has a bit of a wobble there on the exit of the Sector 2 crossover. And he's actually 6/10 up in his time, Dan. 2/3 of a second. Great stuff. But he's going to lose all that time now from this slowing down here, from this penalty. And Apo's just going to sail by. You lose half a second on speed, but I think it's a lot longer. It's probably closer to 1.2, 1.3 seconds. Further down the field, Calais in P13. It's just not going well for him, unfortunately, this evening. Calais, one of our beloved admins in ERO, is part of this pack of 4 here between himself, 90s Raver, Jason, and Pud, as they're all going through the bus stops. Became very clean racing though from all of them. Keith Holt in the back of that, and K-Doggy Dog in P15 still. He's just over 5 seconds now. Seems to be in a maintaining phase as he is clearly on the mediums because his tyres are not wearing. Fuel-wise, it looks like he's used about 2/3 of his tank. Was that 2/3 or was that 3/4? Well, it's about 1/4 of his tank he's used. Just over seconds. He's actually set a purple sector 1 as well. Just now over 6 seconds is the delta. And it seems James as well. So these guys are obviously in a maintenance phase in this race, not using that much fuel. Now, unfortunately, we can't see what fuel they're on because we can only see on the right hand side what their brake balance is, or depending what they have up on their MFD. A lot of them electing for the track map. Matthew, Woody's very close to the back of Matthew, and Matthew's very close to the back of Remco here. And Remco's got a half a second penalty for track limits again. So he's going to be falling back now. He's kind of shoved off there ever so slightly, borderline, but it looks okay by Woody. Now we've got Dan and Mr. Bean fighting further down. These two are really giving it a go at each other. That's a beautiful livery there from Apo. Absolutely beautiful. So we expect all drivers here to have only a 1 stop today. There's no safety cars in Gran Turismo, and Apple and Dan are going to go side by side nearly into this turn, just about keeping it off that. But Apple is really tickling the gearbox here, Mr. Marquez. Dan is racing with us in F1 this season as well. Apple taking a lot of curb there. It's probably going to cost him a bit, but he looks to have gotten the better exit somewhere, and he's going to overtake Dan mid-corner. Great stuff. Pud's kind of about a race by himself at the moment, just a tiny bit too far ahead or too far back are the drivers. Jason, kind of similar with Rob, is rapidly closing in on him. Rob has had a poor start to the season. Now he was in P5 and now he's all the way down to P11. Calais very close as well, and drop it behind him. Drop it with a lot of teeth in his livery. Keith Holt seems to be just a bit far back and over 5 seconds away. And Kian as well. East now, I think he's just going to complete maintenance phase. Happily zooming away. And James on the chemistry here. Beautiful shot of the surrounding scenery in Belgium. In the Ardennes mountain. He's a tiny bit up in his time after Sector 1 as well, a whole 10th. And Business Duck is really closing in as well. Paul not losing any time here to James, keeping it around that second mark where he's been for the majority of this race so far, as we are into lap 5 of 18. With Matthew now, Matthew's really, I don't know if Matthew's holding everyone up here or these guys are just constantly changing positions. But Matthew, Woody and Remco have been battling, all three of them, for the last 3 or 4 laps. Then Dan and Apple were fighting. Neil has arrived on the scene. Rob, Calais and Jason have been fighting as well. Rob here with a beautiful shot of his car here with ERO and Union Jacks everywhere, and his nickname, the Wingman. With a cheeky little EU flag in there. I think Rob is anti-Brexit. Good stuff. Keith further back down the field, and Keane as well in 15th. So Yeast now 7 seconds clear of the chasing pack. James and Ducky are going to be fighting soon. I think Ducky's ever so slightly edging closer here. 8 seconds is the difference. Now I'm assuming all these drivers are on the mediums. Do we see anybody on the softs? It seems like everybody's elected to go for the mediums. Apo's got the least deg out of everybody. And same with Jason. Calais, I think he's had a bit of a moment, unfortunately, because now he's dropped down to P15. I just don't think the CLK is a good car on this track, as far as I can tell. Anyway, Yeast setting very consistent times in between 2:06.8 and 2:07.4. That was his latest lap. That was probably his slowest. That was the slowest one so far, apart from this first lap, obviously. And nearly 8 seconds is the difference, and he's just used just over half his tank remaining. See Business Duck now still staying in that second here. Goes a bit wide there. I think he's going to be okay for track limits, just because the track limit system in this game is a bit different to traditional racing games. But the NSX seems to be working for Mr. Business Duck, keeping him P3. It'll be a decent start to the season for them, as Calais has had enough for this evening. Now, Matthew's still riding in P4 with Woody and Remco behind him, and we will ride on board with Mr. Remco Sweets. Little Hungry King. And you can see here, is he looking at a move here? No, he's going to elect out of it. And next to do the sensible thing here. Someone's going for those moves, they're just foolhardy, as they say. And they're already on board. You can actually see the MFD there on the right hand side. There's a cheeky little mirror as well. Matthew seems to have got a tiny bit of breathing room away from Goofy. Tiny bit. However, they're all coming up closer here as there's a drag race down to the bus stop chicane. Woody not being given a lot of space, and as in return, Matthew not getting a lot of space on the exit of that corner. And here we go. Woody's ended up losing the place as a result, but here he comes right back at Remco and right back at Matthew as well. A bit of a corner cut there from Remco. He should be lucky not to get penalised for that. And now it's a, and speaking of the devil, he does get penalised. And now it's a drag race to turn 1. Remco's gotten past Woody. Will he make a dive on Matthew now? No, but here comes Woody. Ooh, wow. This is really great to watch here. Matthew's a big wobble coming out of turn 1 there. And Matthew ends up keeping the position. Remco ends up getting past Woody, and Woody ends up losing 1 place. Let's just get back to further up the field just so we can see what's happening there. Now, Businessduck 10.5 seconds away, and he's on a flying lap at the moment, just under a tenth quicker, and he's a bit of a moment there through the tricky section at the end of Sector 1 up the hill after the Kemmel Straight. Going down to Les Combs, here we go. Still within that 1 to 1.5 second mark. 10. Actually, himself and James. And a short shift up to 4th gear there. I think these guys are in pure fuel saving mode at this point in time. And if you're east here, the question is, do you extend? Because you've got such a nice gap. Doesn't look to be pushing at all. Looks to be quite comfortable. And James, same as well, quite comfortable, even though Businessduck is there. Keith Holt has left the room as well. He said, "Thank you very much. I've had enough for this evening." And now Remco is going to probably lose quite a bit of time here to the back of this pack. And Dan Marquez is closing in as well to make this a quartet once more. Rob also closing in on this pack. And he's got Neil and Apple right behind him. So there's basically 7 drivers here within, say, 5 seconds of each other. This is great to see. So what you love to see here. And Remco is going to be overtaken by both Woody and Dan as a result of that penalty. That penalty's really cost him dearly. Remco in his Audi for the season. So this season, for some reason he's got DRS. For this season in ERO, you're only allowed to pick 1 car for each tier, or each group. And that's your car for the season. No changes, no takesy backsies. So, whatever you pick, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Remco does have DRS, his car must just have it. Doesn't look to be helping all that much though. And now we're going to see 4 drivers battling it out. Rob's going to be arriving on the scene, we can hope. And Apple is right behind Rob as well. As we're into lap 8 of 18. 10 laps to go here. In round 1 of tier 1 of season 3 of ERO GT7. And whatever's happened here, Rob has just been dropped. He must have had a very bad Eau Rouge. Dan and Goofy fighting it up further the field here for P5. Remco on his best lap of the race so far. So everyone managing to keep it together there. Matthew still holding on to P4 in fairness to him. Everyone hitting the bollards. Bit of contact there between Dan and Remco. And Remco's going to make a dive on the inside here. Bit of hard racing there. That looks reasonably okay. Not the worst I've seen so far. Into the no-name corner Remco goes. Now we're going to ride on board with Dam as he is the cat in this game of cat and mouse. Rob watching from a distance of these 5 drivers behind. Rob at a late lunge there, but no damage done. That's okay, as Keith Holt has cried his way out of the server. Remco and Dan battling hard still. And we can see further up the field Woody and I think it's Matthew. No, it is Matthew, yes. Battling for P4, but we're right on Rob Cripps here because he's got a great view of all of the racing in front of us. We can see exactly what's going on. Further up the field, Businessduck has overtaken Wiggy because Wiggy's gone into the pits. First driver electing to make the early stop here. Very early. He's going to go on the softs till the end of the race by the looks of it. Interesting choice here. Is he going to undercut the 2 drivers ahead of him? He probably undercut... will he undercut you spend much time? We'll see. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. Rob really closing to the back of Remco here. And Wiggy's going to go all the way down to P9, but he's going to have a lot of clean air in front of him. Remco and Dan really battling it out here. Lots of bargy between the 2 of them. And because of them 2 squabbling, that's put Rob up to P5. Good recovery from him now so far. But Remco's coming right back at him at the Eau Rouge Radion complex here. looks unscathed. Matthew. Now, I actually missed this. Woody overtook Matthew for P3 in the track, but P4 after pit stops. Woody lagging quite a bit here, dealing with a lot of lag. Now Matthew's going to have to try and keep with him as best he can. Dan and Rob now fighting, sorry. He's picked a new nemesis for this part of the race, and Remco's got another track limit penalty, unfortunately for them, as he's fighting Apo Topo now. Apo arriving on the scene to also stick his nose in it for P4. This could really go any way at the moment. And here comes Apo on Remco. Remco with the penalty as well. He's going to drop even further back. There, Rob closely following Dan through sector 2 through the tricky corners here. Very easy to lose the car going through that turn, which Rob has just done so. Which Rob has not done so. And Rob 2 seconds down this time. Just following and everything else. And tyre wear. Yeast into the pits. He was on the softs. Now, how much of a difference will that play later on into the race? So we're assuming Business Duck is going to go a bit longer here and is going to go on to the softs. That would be the thinking. And we're going to see a lot of drivers start entering the pits. Matthew is a bit of a wobble, but it just turns out to be decent. Rob into the pits. Bean into the pits. Remco. And Yeast has gone on to the mediums. Not fully fueled, though, to the end of the race. He's managed to come out in P2. And we're back from our little sabbatical there. So, Business Duck 15 seconds ahead of Yeast, and he actually seems to be putting some time between himself and Macaulay, by the looks of it. So maybe the overcut is going to work here. Duck is going to be in at the end of this lap that he's really pushing as well, and he's almost out of fuel. And it seems like Yeast is into fuel saving. I don't think he's in fuel saving mode, surely. But everything he needs to be doing just seems to be losing time. And Goofy seems to be catching him as well. Goofy and Matthew really going at it here into Sector 2. These two have been at it for quite some time now. Dan also on the scene. Remco there. Where is Rob though? James is there. I think Rob has just recently pitted. He has indeed. Get a bit worried there for a second. And we'll see Business Duck enter the pits. After hitting the bus stop chicane. Comes in quite neatly there. And he'll be on the softs for the end of the race. It's going to be a large time in the pits, the refueling. So we're going to see what the delta is now. Has he changed the tyres yet? Still not even into the pits. Oh lordy. And that's going to put Yeast up to P1. A few other drivers we can see in the background entering the pits. Woody and Matthew. And they're just changing the tyres now on Paul's car. And the question is, does he come out ahead of James? He does not. Interestingly enough. Now, P4 on the softs. What can you do? Let's see how far away you are from the leader. It'll be probably close to 15 seconds. It's 13.5 seconds. Probably going to end up in 14 once the game catches up. We see Woody, Matthew, Remco, Pud drop it all in the pits on lap 11. So 14 seconds is the difference. Will Paul be able to catch that? Wiggy also in with a shout here. Less than 10 seconds and he's up in his time, even with a full tank of fuel. Soft's really working to his advantage. And he is gaining on Macaulay. As we can see already. Needs to gain nearly a second a lap though. To put in a challenge towards the end. Will the Softs be able to do that towards the end of the race? That is the question. And Yeast is pulling away on... Is he pulling away on Dan? It doesn't actually look like he is either. Now Dan's going to be in the pits, unfortunately, end of this lap. But Dan is gaining on Yeast. So... Everyone seems to be gaining on Yeast. So if you're pushing, I think now is the time to do it. Because Wiggy's already gained over a second this lap. And is James Wiggins going to actually put up a fight here for the season opener in Spa? I hope it really does. Because he's gaining and gaining here. As we said, he needed to gain over a second a lap. He's up half a second on his best time so far. Excuse me. I think Yeast has started to change the fuel map here. Because now the time is going the other direction, swinging up to 8 seconds. Now, if you remember, the NSX isn't quick on a straight line in comparison to the Toyota GT1. Dan into the pits. I think he's our last driver for the day. Booner going through Puhan, making his own racing line, and I have been kicked from the lobby. Love it. Just bear with us as we try and get back in. We are indeed back in. And for some reason, Pud's the last driver, I think, to come into the pits for some reason. Or has the game just bugged? Kind of hard to say. Anyway, Drop It Peter in Key Doggy Dog in 12, Apo 11, Remco 10, Matthew in P9, Woody in 8, Rob in 7, Dan 6, Ducky in 5th, Wiggy in 4th, Yeast in 3rd. I think these are a bit messed up. But anyway. Let me see if I can fix that. Yeah, there's your current standings there. That makes a lot more sense. For some reason it's still saying that. I'm not too sure why, guys. Anyway, we will trudge along, assuming Yeast is in P1. It'll probably update itself in a second. The only problem is I can't see any of the timings now. And it says we're on lap 1 of 18, when we're clearly not. Okay. Now Business Duck is P1. Now he's P5. Okay. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to fix this, guys. I'm not sure if I can fix this at all. I'm just trying to do everything just to reset it, but it doesn't seem to be working. Anyway, this looks to be the correct standing. Is Yeast, then Wiggy, then Ducky, then Dan, then Rob, which is great to see. After that, we got Goofy. Matthews dropped all the way down to P8 after what was an impressive showing up to that point. Can't really see much deltas though, unfortunately. But we'll stick at it. It does seem to be bugged for some strange reason, but anyway, c'est la vie. Matthew now, he's going to be at the back of this train here of drivers. It's quite a few seconds away from Remco. Remco, though, still a bit away from Rob. And Rob and Woody and Dan are all going to be fighting here now. I think they're all fighting for P3. This is great to see. Oh no, now it's fixed itself. Now Yeast is P1. Okay, good. Yeah, it's fully fixed now. Thank God for that. I was worried for a second. So, now that we've rejoined the front of the field, James Wiggins has closed in about 3 seconds, 4 seconds on Macaulay since we last seen the timing splits. On the faster tyres, and people are asking me, when is the grid reveal on F1? It is on straight after this on the ERO YouTube channel. But while we're here, James and Yeast are going to be battling hopefully pretty soon. With just over 4 seconds seems to be the difference. And James is really pushing here. Really pushing here. It'd be interesting to see if they both started on the same tyre, what would have been the pace difference. Now that would have been the optimal question. As Paul seems to be just a wee bit too far back to challenge here. However, now it's less than 4 seconds with 4 laps to go here. And I think East is going to be sweating just a little bit here. This is giving shades of Verstappen and Norris from the last few races in F1, where Lando just was on the slower, initial half, or first half of the race, and then the second half he just seemed to be a lot quicker. Saying that here, not massive gains through that last sector, still just over 4 seconds. We'll just go further down the field just to keep a track of the other drivers. Dan Marquez, great recovery from him all the way to P4. Same for Rob Cripps, the man of the hour, who's helped tremendously in the ERO the last few months. Really appreciate everything you've done for us, mate. You're a big asset to the ERO community. Has made a fantastic recovery after a lap 1 spin into P5. Someone has just joined. Woody now also P7. And he is not too far behind. Remco, who's been involved in the wars this race with a lot of penalties and a lot of hard racing, should we say, is battling Rob for P5. And Rob is trying to catch up to the back of Dan here, but I just don't think he's got the straight line speed compared to Dan. Matthew in P8, Apple in P9, drop it. Paul, I'm not sure your second name, I'm sorry, in P10. Kean in P11, Jason in P12, and Neil in P13. Neil seems to be a bit away from Yeast. So now, still less, just under over 3.5 seconds here, with a few laps to go. James will be pushing like a madman here. His tyres are going to start to die though, and Yeast's tyres are barely even weathered. This is the benefits of being in the mediums, is that if the race does come back to you, even if you do have a slight speed disadvantage against the softs. Now, just over 3 seconds is the gap. 3 laps to go. What can James do here? Because even at this point here, he has to have enough tyre grip to even battle him at the end. And I think Yeast has just got that much more grip. He can just really push when he wants to. And yeah, and Yeast, I think Yeast just has a bit of time in the tank here. He's not worried too much. Dan managing to fend off Robs by the look of it just for now. And further down the field, Remco I think is going to be happy taking P6. Matthew and Apo I predict are going to be fighting for that last point in the championship, as 8 places get championship points. in our GT7 leagues. There's a lot of lag there. I don't know what was going on. There was some crazy desync. Now, Apple rapidly closing in on Matthew here. Matthew had a good start to this race, and he's just kind of lost a bit of pace, unfortunately, for him. Maybe it's his tire differential. Maybe he's just not coping well with the deg. Soren's just going to drop him now. Woody's going to get P7 here quite comfortably at this rate. Rob, though, here we go on the Chemo straight as the inside line. I think it's turn 5. But here comes Remco right back at him. Side by side they go here. Rob edging out in that encounter just for now as they're coming up to Les Combs. Down the hill Rob goes. Remco following him and Woody following him closely behind. Matthew still staying ahead of Apo as well. Further up the field, it's still just over 3 seconds between Yeast and James Wiggins. Just over 3 seconds and another 3.5 seconds separating James and Paul. Dan is going to happily take P4, I think, here after the start he had. Good recovery, it must be said. Rob can be said the same thing for him. He's going to finish, by the looks of it, exactly where he started in P5 with a few laps to go here. Remco not guaranteed P6 though, as Woody is hot on his heels with less than a second separating these two into Sector 3 on lap 16 of 18 here in Spa. Matthew, again, not guaranteed the last championship point place, as Apo is sticking right with him, not giving this up until right till the end. Cannot say there's not close driving here. I think Matthews went a bit deep there, and Apo is right hot on his heels, and it's going to be a drag race to turn 1. Is Apo going to use the slipstream here? He's going to try, but I don't think he's got enough track just yet. Stay off the grass, Apo. Pick your braking point and get a better exit. That's the name of the game here. I think Matthew's going a wee bit too wide here. Apple's got a bit of a shake, a bit of snap of oversteer. Will he be able to control it and get a better exit up, or a better run up Eau Rouge and Radion? Doesn't look like he's going to, but he is gaining. That slipstream is really coming into effect here. Into 6th gear already. Oh, he's got a much better exit there. I think he's going to have Matthew here by the end of the Chemo straight. He's got to pick left or right. He's picked left. He's going to have the outside line here, which turns to the inside line, and he's going to edge ahead of Matthew. He doesn't have to give him space here, but Matthew coming right back at him here, pushing his car into the situation. There was almost tears there. Apo up to P8. Good job from you. Matthew down to P9. Further up the field, Goofy still right on the heels of Remco, who's right on the heels of Rob. Has Wiggy caught East? He has, just by another second, but is it going to be too little too late up the top here? James has burned through all of his tyres at this point. Or East tyres aren't even a quarter of the way old. Probably a 5th. Business stuck. It's kind of kept in no man's land here. You'll just take P3 quite comfortably. However, the top 3 are within striking distance of each other. One bad moment from either driver in the top 2 will see them drop down to probably 3rd place here as we enter into the final lap. And all Macaulay has to do is keep it on the track, and he continues where he left off in ERO. But saying that now, oh, never mind, he's got a better exit. I think that's going to be all she wrote here, as Ducky is actually closing in now ever so slightly. Let's see further down the field what's happening, and it looks like Rob is going to have to settle for P5. Matthews up to P7. We missed this now. Remco in P8 and Apo in P9. Was there some shenanigans going on there now? Will it be in the steward's room after the race? Remember, you can make a report, and which can lead to time penalties or place penalties depending on the severity of the incidents. I think Apo's head is just gone at this point. Remco's going to be up to P8, Matthew P7, Goofy in P6. I think Rob with a solid enough recovery there to P5. Can't really complain with that. Same can be said for Dan. But it will be this man who's led the whole way. He won't have the fastest lap though. That's going to go to James. is still closing in on him, you know. If Yeast has a moment here, it's all over. This is not by any means a walk in the park for Macaulay Beard in our round one opener. Not by any means at all. It's going to be less than 2.5 seconds, the final delta between these two. And that's going to be all she wrote for Season 3, Round 1. As we see a bit of weaving to celebrate. It's going to be Yeast across the line, James Wiggins in second, Paul Hutchison in third. That's your podium finishers for Round 1. Next across the line will be Dan Marquez. It's going to be a wee bit away as he's racing down to the bus stop now. Great showing from him. Rob Cripps is going to take fifth. Another good showing. Great recovery. And they're going to both cross the line now. Next two we're going to see Goofy. We do indeed. He's going to be P6. Is Matthew going to take his first points of the season provisionally? He is indeed up to P7. Now, Remco and Apo are going to race to the line, but Remco's going to edge this battle out for P8 in our last points position. Apo trying to crash the car as he traditionally does. Then finally, we're going to have Drop It, Kian, Jason, and Neil. Neil's a way bit away, unfortunately for them. Next across the line is Jason. Well done to you in your maiden race in ERO. If you want to tune in, we are going to be starting the grid reveal on our channel now in a new video or a new live stream starting very soon. Just as soon as I get the final standings here, just for the fantastic Diogo Valentin. As we do see Yeast, our initial winner here. So let's just get a final rounding of the results. In 13th was Neil, Jason in 12th, Kian Hodgson in 11th, Drop at 10th, Apo 9th. In 8th position was Remco Sweets, 7th in Matthew Wrightson, Goofy Woody in 6th, Rob 5th, Dan 4th. Our podium sitters were Business Duck, Wiggy and Yeast. Next week we will be back in action again at the same time every Wednesday. Tune in and I'll be hosting Tier 1 again. Hopefully we'll have Sparrow Moppy for Tier 2. Good night, everybody.